kiranya di kau tak bahagia. Tuhan, jiwaku merawat perasaan saat ku kehilangan.
Assalamualaikum and a very good day to Puan Syarida and to all of my fellow classmates. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day today. I would like to kickstart the presentation by introducing myself. My name is Badrul Haikal Afiq bin Badrul Nizam. My matric number is 2020967655 and I'm from group RBA 2425A group 1. As for our presentation today, we have chosen Sri Lanka's petrol shortage as our main topic to discuss. Sri Lanka is known as a multinational state home to diverse cultures, language and ethnicities. The Sinhalese are the majority of the nation's population. The Tamils, who are a large minority group, have also played an influential role in the island's history. Other long-established groups include the Moors, the Burgher, the Malays, the Chinese and the indigenous Veda. The island has had a long history of engagement with modern international groups. It is a founding member of the SARS and a member of the United Nations, the Commonwealth of Nations, the G77 and the Non-Aligned Movement. Sri Lanka is the highest ranked South Asian nation on the Human Development Index and has the second highest per capita income in South Asia. However, the ongoing economic crisis has resulted in the collapse of currency, rising inflation, humanitarian crisis due to surf shortage of essential and petrol shortage problem. It has also led to eruption of street protests with citizens demanding that the president and the government step down. In 2022, a political crisis started due to the power struggle between President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and the Parliament of Sri Lanka. The crisis was fueled by the anti-government protests and demonstrations by public and also due to the worsening economy of Sri Lanka since 2019. The anti-government settlement across various parts of Sri Lanka has triggered an unprecedented political instability, creating shockwave in political arena. As for the next part, my fellow teammates will further expand on our main topic. My teammates will be presenting on how tankers strike due to the high transportation costs, inability to pay the cost of fuel due to expanding in debt and unstable politics in Sri Lanka have given a significant impact on Sri Lanka's petrol shortage problem.
It's like falling down the stairs. That's the situation faced by Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is already in an economic downturn as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic outbreak that hit the world. Assalamualaikum and very good morning to our beloved lecturer, Madam Nur Sharida binti Badri Shah, and to all my fellow friends. My name is Muhammad Sufi Imran bin Izhar from RBA 2425A, and today I would like to elaborate more on the issues currently faced by Sri Lanka, which is petrol shortage. So, why Sri Lanka is facing petrol shortage right now? In a televised address, Ranil Wickremesinghe, the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, said that the nation urgently needs 75 million of foreign currency in the next few days to pay for essential imports. He said that the central bank would have to print money to pay the government wages. Mr. Wickremesinghe also said that the state-owned Sri Lankan Airlines may be privatized. The island nation's economy has been hit hard by the pandemic. Rising energy prices and populist tax cuts, a chronic shortage of foreign currency and soaring inflation had led to a severe shortage of fuel, medicine and other essentials in that country. As we can see, this picture was captured on 2nd of May 2022 of vehicle queuing up to buy fuel at a petrol station in Colombo, Sri Lanka. Mr. Wickremesinghe said in Monday address, "At the moment, we only have petrol stock for a single day. The next couple of months will be the most difficult one in our life." On top of that, a strike by fuel tanker owners as they were demanding for an increase to their prices to ferry the petrol across the country. This strike happened because the operator says running costs are up due to diesel prices being raised by 138% by the government, while insurance and spare parts have spiked due to the sharp depreciation of Sri Lanka's currency. According to Mr. Wijesekara, the Energy Minister of Sri Lanka, the union representing tanker operators was demanding an 115% increase in fees to ferry the petrol across the country, outstripping an offer of 95% more from state-owned Ceylon Petrol Corps. He also added, "We are willing to increase, but not as much as the tanker operators are demanding." He said, "If we give in, the CPC will go bankrupt." The rupees has already dropped by more than 40% against dollar since March. Meanwhile, according to the world's Is1 News, Sri Lanka has no dollar to pay for petrol shipments. The petrol shipment has been at the Colombo port since 28th of March 2022, and the government has been unable to pay for it. The government has also asked people to stop queuing for fuel for the next 2 days, as the government are trying to find a solution to this crisis. Among the strategies that Sri Lankan government has implemented is Sri Lanka Prime Minister Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe proposed to sell off the Sri Lankan airline as part of efforts to stabilize the nation's finance. The carrier has lost 45 billion Sri Lankan rupees in the year ending March 2022, while the sale of Sri Lankan airline is not likely to fetch much money, possibly raising taxes as well as energy and utility prices could add more to public anger against the government. This is the most difficult time faced by Sri Lanka as their economy are getting worse since the independence from Britain in 1948. Furthermore, to resolve the issue of petrol shortage, Sri Lanka has extended a credit line with India by $200 million in order to produce emergency fuel stocks. Mr. Wijesekara told a news conference, Sri Lanka are in talk with New Delhi over extending the credit line by an additional of $500 million. Sri Lanka has already used $400 million on multiple shipments in April of the $500 million credit line extended by India earlier this year. The Indian credit line was extended by $200 million recently, and this will be utilized for petrol shortage. Talks are continuing for a further $500 million with India, so in total of the credit line will be $1.2 billion.
Assalamualaikum and good morning to everyone. My name is Ahmad Muhammad bin Abdul Razak from RBA 24258. Today I will present about the second point of unable to pay the cost of fuel due to the expanding in debt during a Sri Lanka petrol shortage. Sri Lanka is expected to be placed into a default by rating agency on the Wednesday after the non-payment of coupon on the two of its security bonds. While according the energy minister said that country had run out of money to pay for the fuel. An economic crisis unprecedented in the country history since independence in 1948 has led to the critical shortage of the foreign exchange that saw it miss a two coupon payment on the sovereign bond on April 18. Sri Lanka has already said it is unable to make the coupon payment at a 30-day grace period end of the Wednesday. S&P has said that the renting on the bond maturing in 2023 and 2038 have already been cut to a default by the country. Overall rating could be further cut to D on the confirmation of the non-payment after the grace of period. Sri Lanka currently has no dollar to pay for the petrol shipment. Power and Energy, Mr. Kanchana told the parliament, appealing to the people to stop queuing for the next 2 days. A petrol shipment has been at the Colombo port since 28 March, but the government have been unable to pay. According by the Prime Minister, there are enough dollars available to open the letter of credit. He said, we are working to find the fund, but the petrol will not be available at least until the weekend. The very small reserve stock of the petrol is being released for the essential service like an ambulance. Prime Minister Ranil gave a statement Wednesday. The country has secured 160 million in the bridge of financing from the World Bank, but it was not clear if the fund could be used for a few payments. Hit by the pandemic, rising oil prices and a populist tax cut in Sri Lanka, the economic situation has led to the expiring inflation and shortage of the essential supplies, bringing thousands of into the street in a protest. Inflation could rise further to a staggering 40% in the next couple of months, but it was being driven largely by a supply side pressure and a measure by the bank and a government were already reigning in the demand side of inflation, the central bank governor. In addition, to solve this problem, the government can use a fiscal and a monetary policy. Let's cover the fiscal tool first. Government often arrests tax to pay for the expenditure. Tax can be included a federal, state, and in some cases local income and business tax. Other examples including the alternative minimum tax. Although tax hikes are common practice, most of nations face a larger and growing debts. It is likely that the higher debt level are largely due to the failure to cut spending. When the cash flow increase and the spending continue to rise, the increase of revenue make the little difference to the overall debt level. Next, in a monetary policy, maintain interest rate in the low level is another way that Sri Lanka seeks to stimulate the economy, generate the tax revenue, and ultimately reduce the national debt. Lower interest rate make it easier for individual and a business to borrow money. In turn, those borrowers spend that money on a good and a service, which create a job and a tax revenue. Low interest rate have been done by the United States, the European Union, the United Kingdom, and other nations during time of the economic stress. With some degree of success, the note and the interest rate keep at or near zero for an extended period of time have not been proved for debt-ridden government. That's all for me. Thank you for your time. I will pass to the next presenter.
Hi and Assalamualaikum to my beloved lecturer, Madam Sharida, and my friends. Before we start, let me introduce myself first. My name is Muhammad Kamil bin Anwar. My matric number is 2020960121, and I'm from the group of RBA 2425A. Now, I will share with you another important issue, which is unstable politics in Sri Lanka causes of Sri Lanka petrol shortage. Okay, first, why is Sri Lanka facing a fuel shortage? Sri Lanka state-run fuel retailer Ceylon Petroleum Corporation or CPC cannot buy enough dollars in the market at the current 200 to the US dollar rate due to foreign exchange shortage. The shortage comes from rupees injected into the banking system to maintain low interest rates, which it has pushed up and credit and demand for all imports. Unlike other import bills, which are small, fuel bills are among the biggest, and therefore, whenever money is printed to keep rates down, fuel bills stand up as the most difficult to fill. Unlike other importers, the CPC also does not pay higher rates to buy dollar at higher rates any longer. On top of that, the CPT says it is losing 551 million rupees a day due to rising fuel price in February 2022. Unless price are increased, it cannot find the rupee to buy dollars. In the past, loans were covering by tax cut and loans from the state banks. Now the government is the short of tax revenues, especially after a salary increase, and the CPC is indebted to the hilt to state banks from the past wrong practice. The CPC owes banks over $3.5 billion. Sri Lanka Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe declared that the country had run out of petrol amid the economic crisis sweeping the island nation. The country has been hit by fuel and food shortage, including high inflation as it struggled with a political crisis. Sri Lanka made a $35.3 million payment to release a 37,500 metric ton diesel shipment, and President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has also asked authorities to give priority for fuel as power became bigger. Energy Minister Udaya Ganmapila, who had earlier warned out of 4-hour power cuts when daily power cuts were denied to the CEB after a coal plant broke down. Forex shortage disrupted imports and the utility was running down hydro storage too fast. Ganmapila has also warned of fuel shortage if the CPC is not allowed a price increase to generate rupees to buy dollars, as it can no longer borrow from banks. Okay, now, why are people protesting against politics? Sri Lanka, who voted Rajapaksa into the presidency 3 years ago, are finding themselves in increasingly difficult living conditions. Household and business have endured power cuts since March as the government struggled to pay for energy supplies. There are long lines at gas stations and daily shortage of essential food items, which, if available, are becoming prohibitively expensive. Rajapaksa opponents have camped out in the downtown Colombo, the capital, for weeks to demand his resignation. And now, how has the government responded? The president on May 6 declared a public emergency for second time in 2 months, giving him sweeping powers to suspend laws, detain people and seize property. A nationwide curfew was imposed and local media reported the army was called up in Colombo as some protests turned violent. Dozens of people have been injured. Rajapaksa, whose powers were expanded under a 2020 constitutional amendment, has condemned the violence and invited all parties in parliament to join in a national unity government to resolve a crisis. Opposition leaders have instead called for fresh election and repealing the amendment. So, next part we go into the solution. The severe economic crisis in Sri Lanka shows no sign of ending anytime soon, with the country's newly installed Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe warning of more difficult days ahead. Hana Singahamdi, the most senior UN official in Sri Lanka, told UN News that amid violent protests and the imposition of a state emergency, any solution must involve a robust democracy and respect for human rights. According to her, since the start of the crisis, the UN has tracked over 1,000 protests. Initially, these were peaceful, driven by citizen participation and characterized by calls for a challenge of the government. They were joined by political parties, trade unions, student unions, clergy and other interest groups. But as the shortage of gas and fuel became more prominent, we started witnessing violent clash. Some 60 houses were torched, around 8 people killed and several more injuries. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights has called on the authorities to independently, truly and transparently investigate all the attacks that have occurred, especially on the peaceful protesters. There needs to be a meaningful and inclusive dialogue with all parts of societies to address the socio-economic challenges faced by the people. Political stability is critical to create an environment for the negotiation with the International Monetary Fund or IMF, which can then set up the way forward for economic recovery. We hope that Sri Lanka will find a peaceful solution to the current crisis soon, to alleviate the people's suffering, strengthen democracy and human rights, and prevent further violence. That's all from me. Thank you.
There are several recommendations that the government of Sri Lanka can do regarding the 3 issues that we have concluded based on several articles and news. The recommendation for the issue related to the tanker strike due to the high transportation cost is the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka have to sell the Sri Lankan Airlines, whereby this solution or efforts can stabilize the nation's financial system. The airlines company already lost 45 billion Sri Lankan rupees, and this is not a good sign for the transportation sector. Moreover, the Sri Lanka National Bank have to agree to extend the credit line with India country, whereby this strategy can resolve the issue of petrol shortage. Next, the recommendation for the issue regarding Sri Lanka unable to pay the cost of fuel due to expanding in debt is the government of Sri Lanka need to increase the tax for expenditures, whereby the government can use fiscal and monetary policy. When cash flow increase and spending continue to rise, the increased revenue make little difference to the overall debt level. The next solution is the government have to keep the interest rate at lower rate. Moreover, the government can stimulate the economy, generate tax revenue, reduce the national debt, and also give benefit for individual and businesses to borrow money. To summarize, we really hope that Sri Lanka government and other organizations will come together as one in order to solve this problem in the future, and we hope that Sri Lanka will continue to be a developed country without the problem of petrol shortage issue, politics and financing problem. We sincerely appreciate your attention listening to our presentation for today, and that brings us to the end. We'd like to thank you for your time and attention today. Thank you and have a great day.